A very good evening to everyone present here. I'm Srishti Verma and my co-host Isna Hashmi. We welcome you all to this event. As has been rightly said by Mr. Keating in the movie Dead Poets Society, that poetry, beauty, art are what we
Yes, Srishti, what happened?
am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you're audible perfectly.
Hello.
Yeah, you're audible. Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am, now I'm sorry. I'll
No
begin.
problem.
As has been rightly said by Mr. Keating in the movie Dead Poets Society, poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. We are extremely delighted to welcome you all to this guest lecture on Robert Browning's celebrated poem, My Last Duchess.
We thank our distinguished director, Professor Dr. Kumkum Ray ma'am, for motivating us to organize this lecture. Ma'am was a senior Cambridge Honours graduate at Lady Shri Ram College, Delhi University, and has received the Best Thesis Award for her Ph.D. on Henry Louis Vivian de Rozier, the first Anglo-Indian nationalist poet. She has been an educational social activist and has over 46 years of teaching experience. Ma'am is the founding professor and director of Amity School of Languages. Her anthology, Breathe Free, Flow Free, published by Notion Press, is a reflection of challenging the status quo in literary narrative through poems.
You are the epitome of knowledge, dedication, and discipline. We thank you, ma'am, for always blessing us with your knowledge and wisdom. I take this opportunity to welcome the faculty members, staff members, students, and research scholars who have joined us this evening. Now, I request Ayushi ma'am to introduce our eminent guest speaker of the evening.
Thank you, Srishti and Isna. So I'll just formally introduce Meenakshi ma'am. Dr. Shivram has taught literature to undergraduate and postgraduate students at Mumbai University, Chennai University, and Christ University Bangalore. Her PhD thesis was a study of Indian women novelists comparing those writing in English with those writing in Hindi. She has edited and published critical books. Her entries on Indian poets is part of the Routledge Encyclopedia of Postcolonial Writers. She is an empanelled reviewer with the Hindu and with the Book Review. She is a translator and has won the Sahitya Akademi Award for translation in 2008. At present, she is the chief mentor of the Center for Academic and Professional Support at Christ University Bangalore, and she is the chairperson of Seniors for Change, a Bangalore-based NGO. Her interests are now largely in understanding Indian philosophy. On the behalf of the heads, faculty, staff, and students of Amity School of Languages, Lucknow, I welcome you, ma'am. We're very happy that you're here, and thank you for accepting to speak
Yes,
to
we are
us.
honored to have you, Dr. Meenakshi, such a literary brilliant giant on our platform. And I'm sure everybody will take home a lot of learning from your talk. So, without any delay, I welcome you and I'm really very thankful to you. And I look forward to a lot of associations in the future. Wish you all the best for your journey to the US and hope to see you back on Indian soil soon. So, thank you once again, Dr. Meenakshi.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ray, Ayushi, uh, Shrishti. Uh, so generous of you, one, to have called me over here. With, the bio data is something we just give, but in my heart, I'm only a teacher. So that is all that I am. It's just such a short bio data that I'm a teacher and I'm here because I love to teach literature. And it's a beautiful day simply because Ayushi has been my student, and I remember how I had invited her to talk to a class, and now, as I have stopped teaching and I have all the time to enjoy literature, I'm being called by a student. I really love this Guru Shishya Parampara, and I hope There are, students who take on and connect us across. I would never have known Amity University in Lucknow beyond its name, but now to know the faculty over here and to be connected and to be invited to give a lecture over here is simply because I've been Ayushi's teacher. That's it, right? So thank you very much for having me. And I am here today to talk about one poem which has been prescribed for you. So formally, let me thank the Amity School of Languages and Dr. Ray for allowing me this platform to speak to the students. So the poem is My Last Duchess, and it's a poem in English. It's a poem written 100 and so many years ago. And here we are sitting in India and studying that poem by Robert Browning. Teachers would have told you, or maybe in your own journey as literature students, Robert Browning may be a name that you're familiar with, and you would say, Robert Browning. Is there any other Browning you know?
Elizabeth Barrett Browning.
Are they related?
I think, ma'am, I'm not sure.
So there is someone who knows Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and there is Robert Browning. We have all these names of literature that has been developed over there, and we live in times where this is a poem which has been prescribed for study. So obviously there will be questions on this poem. There will be answers that you will write. There will be interpretation, but there will be no thinking involved because Google has all the answers. It has all the questions and all the answers, right? So any question that anyone were to ask you on Robert Browning, all you need is access to Google and you have the answer. Right? So we can't ask you assignment questions. And now with ChatGPT, it'll give you brilliant answers as well. So what are we doing over here? When every information is available on the net, when Robert Browning has been analyzed, this poem has been analyzed line by line, word by word, meaning for meaning, everything is offered to you on a platter. Why do you need a teacher? So I've been thinking about it, and to say that I want to focus in this 1 hour and a little more than an hour on how to enjoy this poem. Let's enjoy this poem. There's a lot of interpretation, but poetry, language, any language, right? And anything that is created out of languages, why do people create that? Why do people write in a certain way? And what are they communicating? What are they saying? To me, this is important to look at poets of 100 years ago, because right now poets, all of us as writers and creative thinkers, focus on the politics of identity. Who am I? What am I? Where am I located? Am I an Indian? Am I a woman? Am I a Hindu? Am I a Muslim? Am I a Christian in India? Am I a Dalit? Our entire focus is on identity. And then, therefore, we write confessional poetry. This is my location. This is what I am. This is where I am. And therefore, this is the kind of poetry I like. Young people I know also like instant poetry, right? Jam poetry, one competition over here. In 3 seconds, write that. Here, 10 keywords, create a poem. But some time ago, people were simply poets. They wrote because they didn't know what else to do. And they created a world that we can see now. So let's see what is the world that we see from this particular poem. And I am going to start sharing a file for just about 5 minutes, right? And then I'll come back because I don't want to, there is no PowerPoint presentation, but there are some things that I want to show to you so that we can put that aside and then come to the lecture itself. So far, are you with me? We're just going to enjoy the poem. I'm not teaching. Is that okay? Is there some way that I can know a thumbs up or something is happening?
Yes, ma'am. They can react. So students, please use the reactions
Yeah,
on your
if you want to, no
You can do
compulsion.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to share one little slide here. Let me know if you can see this. It's a plain vanilla slide. Can you see
visible.
that? Yes?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
All right. So here we are. This is the poem, My Last Duchess. I'll come back to the title in a moment. Please take down a few keywords because this we'll junk aside once we start enjoying the poem. So one is that Browning has often been recognized as a Victorian poet. A few years later, when you do your research, you can maybe check these labels, right? Victorian poet. Why is someone a Victorian poet? He is a Victorian poet because he wrote when Queen Victoria was alive. Queen Victoria was alive for close to 100 years. So everyone who wrote at that time was a Victorian poet, and there you have him. You can know who his contemporaries were. This particular poem has a form of a technique of writing poetry, which has been described as a dramatic monologue. It is not a soliloquy, it's a dramatic monologue. Monologue is one person speaking. Dramatic is from the word drama. So there is a scene which is unfolding over here. You and I are the audience, and we are going to watch that particular performance happening on stage, right? So it's a dramatic monologue. Then this word that I wish to introduce you to, if you're not already familiar with it, it's called an ekphrastic poem. So I'm not going to explain the word ekphrastic to you. It'll take you 20 seconds to find out the meaning on Google, but it's a good word to know. And one thing that I will focus on will be the iambic pentameter. It's the study of the rhythm of the poem, right? How is this poem rhythmic? Rhythmic is tadam, 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 tadam. What is the beat of this particular poem? Do poems have beats at all? It's not music, right? So what are we talking about over here? So I'd like to introduce you to iambic pentameter because I feel that ChatGPT and Google may not be able to teach you this. So that'll be the only little bit of teaching that I will do if required at the end, right? Now this is an FYI. There are 5 titles of nobility in the descending order. So right on top is the Duke. And the female for the Duke is a Duchess. Then we have next is a Marquise. And then we have a Marchioness, the female form. We have an Earl. They didn't have another name for the wife or the lady who is with the Earl, so she's a Countess. And then there is a Viscount, and you have a Viscountess, and lowest in the order is a Baron and a Baroness. All right. Some of you may be familiar with the theater and the drama that is happening around Prince Henry's life. So, you know, the king and the prince, and then below them you have all these titles. So in this particular poem, which title are we looking at? If someone can unmute, or if you can read the answer, please tell me, Ayushi.
Duke and Duchess.
Okay, who's answered that?
Ayushi. I have answered.
What about the students? So the title of the poem is My Last Duchess, right? So there is the Duchess, and if it is my Duchess, then it must be the Duke. This is just an FYI in case you didn't know these are the various hierarchies that are available within the British nobility. Now, ways of reading a poem. One way is a biographical way, which is to know when did Browning write, what was the political situation around him, why did he write this kind of a poem, what had happened in his life, what were his experiences that made him write poems and made him write this kind of a poem. They're all very interesting, and for students, I would always recommend read the life of Robert Browning and Elizabeth Barrett Browning, because it's the most beautiful love story in this world. Okay, for those of you who like romance, you will love this. Elizabeth Barrett Browning is in one particular corner. She is an invalid. She can't move out. She's very dependent on her family, and her father adores her. He dotes on her. He puts her on the wheelchair, never lets her get out, and she's in that cold, wintry place. And she writes poems, and she sends her poems to a poet who lives far away. And she's writing in the old days, it's not a WhatsApp thing, right? So she's writing a poem and having it posted to someone called Robert Browning. And then they have an exchange of letters. And then Robert Browning comes to meet her. And the rest of the story you find out, because the father is not going to let her go away, right? So you find out. But the biography is very, very important and nice and interesting. That's one way of reading a poem. The other is what we usually do in class. When we look at a poem like this, you can look at what class is being represented over here. How is gender being represented over here? How are men and women being considered over here? Is there a caste factor? When we're doing it in India, we look at the caste. But in this particular poem, there is no mention of that caste, but hierarchy itself can be a kind of a caste. Then location, we are Indians, we are here. So how are we reading this particular poem? What does it mean to us? Should we read this poem at all? All these kinds of ways are available to us to read a poem. Right? I mean, any one student can say 100 years ago, someone wrote a poem. Why are we reading that now? And why poetry? Why do people write poems? Why can't they directly say, I love you? Why do they write so many lines to just say, my love is a rose or something like that? And why can't you be direct? So those of us who are not very fond of poetry can also have a say, right? In the different ways in which poems are read. And then the last one is a formalistic way of reading a poem, which is look at the poem, look at the words that are available, read the words on the page and tell me what you feel. So I am going to follow the last one, a formalistic reading. I will read it to your teachers to take you to the Victorian era, to the context of the poet, to the context of the poem itself, to the various other poems written by Robert Browning and maybe his contemporaries. For today, for this very short, brief interaction that we are going to have, I will look at what the poet wrote and let us enjoy that. And for me, therefore, I would like to share this particular couplet with you. We don't call it a couplet in Hindi or Urdu, but in English it's called a couplet. It says, बड़े लोगों से मिलने में हमेशा फासला रखना, जहां दरिया समंदर से मिला, दरिया नहीं रहता. Now, I really want to know and check with you. Did you like these lines? You have to say a yes, no, and did you need a teacher to explain these lines to you?
Yes.
You like the lines?
That's interesting. I think the students are all muted. That's why they are not responding.
Yeah, that's okay. But I'm hoping that you agree that you don't need a teacher to explain line 1, line 2.
Yes, especially for students who are in Lucknow. They are so used to sher shairi.
Yeah. So thank you. I'll just go back to the sharing. Once, yeah.
Students, are you not able to unmute yourselves? You can text me personally so that I can come to know.
So here are these lines, and this is my point over here. If you know the language, you don't need a teacher, right? You enjoy it. Now, what is the meaning of the second line? Jahan dariya samandar se mila, dariya nahi rehta. Is that positive? Is that negative? How do you interpret it? What is your meaning of it? You just liked it. And now you can explore the meaning in whatever way you want to, right? Because there is a context in the first line. Bade logon se milne mein hamesha fasla rakhna. Now, supposing we take off the first line, and then we just look at the philosophy. Jahan dariya samandar se mila, dariya nahi rehta. That can be, is that positive? Is that negative? What is it? So there are, if you know the meaning, if you know the language, everything becomes easy. And then look at this particular one. For those of you from Lucknow, I've just mixed up some lines and put it over here because I remember it a little differently. बंदिशे अल्फाज से ही शायरी होती नहीं, जिगर भी चाहिए असर के लिए, जिगर भी चाहिए. Here it says जिगर का खून भी चाहिए, कुछ चाहिए असर के लिए, थोड़ा सा चाहिए. So, you know, you can have the world's best words and you can have great poems, but it really cannot make sense, asar, right, for the impact of that poem to come if you don't contribute a little with your own feelings. That is all that I want to share for now. And when I close my talk, I will tell you what an iambic pentameter is. That is all that I wish to share to begin with. Okay, so I am going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop sharing and get on to, is there a problem?
Can you see yourself, ma'am?
No, I'm not able to see myself.
I'll just spotlight you and you can let me know if you're able to see yourself.
I can see myself now. Yeah, thank you so much. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm doing. Right, students. So thank you for this particular beginning and introduction. I've only said this, we are going to enjoy the poem. How do we enjoy a poem? Someone I remember had asked Swami Chinmayananda ji, I have read the Bhagavad Gita so many times. Everything is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Why do we need a teacher? Right, to which Swami Chinmayananda said, why don't you ask the book? Why are you asking me? You know, sometimes if you have a question, go ask the book itself, right? Now you need a teacher sometimes because the book doesn't give you everything. So I'll just look at the joy that we can create with this poem together. So let's look at the title, and I'd like you to unmute yourself. Don't feel threatened. Do you feel threatened by me or something? Just say whatever you want to say. I have not been a teacher as long as Dr. Ray has been, but I'm close to that, right? Close to 40 years of teaching, and I enjoy it. Y'all are young, so please feel free to say whatever you want. Let's look at the title, My Last Duchess. So who's speaking this? Who is the speaker? If there's anything in the chat box, otherwise the answer is the Duke, right? If you got the answer in your mind, that's the answer. The Duke is the speaker. And then there is the Duchess. And he's saying, what is the meaning of the word last? My last Duchess.
Students, you can use the chat box as well if you don't wish to unmute yourself. Otherwise, please feel comfortable.
Anyone?
Ma'am,
Hmm?
ma'am, I think by last he meant that there will be no one after the Dutch.
There will be no one after this?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, okay. So keep that interpretation in mind. This is the last one. There's going to be no one, right? That's one interpretation. Anybody else? Any other meaning to the word last?
Ma'am, I think by last he means the most recent one.
Who is this?
It's Pranjal, and Pranjal is a girl.
The most recent one, like, you know, last year, last week, my most recent Duchess. So we'll see what that means. We've got two very different kinds of meanings over here. Last, final, absolutely no one after this. And this one says, oh, just the one who went by. So that's my last Duchess. That's the title. We will know what the meaning is as soon as we look at the poem. I'm going to read a little, move on, read a little more, and then make you read if you're okay to read, and then play the audio for you towards the end. So remember the word drama, something is happening over here. And now this Duke is saying, that's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder. Now, Fra Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will it please you sit and look at her? How many people are there in this poem? In these few lines that I have read.
Come on, students, you have the text as well in front of you. Just tell
There is
ma'am.
Yes.
and the painter who painted the Duchess.
Okay, so there is a painter. Let's not give the person an identity, but there is one more person, right? There is the speaker, there is the Duke, who's telling someone. And how did you know there was one more person? Which line?
The speaker asked him to sit and look at the portrait of the Duchess.
Very good. Right. Will it please you sit and look at her? But will you please sit down and look at her? So which means he's talking to someone. So like I told you, drama, theater happening over there. So on stage, there is a man, there is someone we think is the Duke, and there is another person over there to whom he's saying, look at her. Who is that her? Who does he want to look at?
Ma'am, the Duchess.
The Duchess. So is that the real Duchess?
It's the painting of the Duchess.
It is the painting. Okay, now you see how the poet is playing all the time. He makes you feel as if, look at her, she is here, but it's actually all the time only the painting. And therefore, let's go back. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall. Oh my God, so there he is, right? There's a painting, you know how kings and queens are, they have all the, also royalty in our own country, they put these generations of people are painted and put up on the wall like that. And then he says she's on the wall looking as if she were alive. As if she were alive. What does that mean? Is she alive?
No, ma'am.
Perhaps not, right? We don't know. But it says she looks so alive over here. And then he says, I call that piece. What is that piece? That piece of work, that piece of art. I call that a wonder now. And then he says, Fra Pandolf's hands. Fra Pandolf is the name of the painter. Who has painted this? This is a person called Fra Pandolf, right? So Fra Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Like, you know, she doesn't stand. It's a painting that stands. But you'll have the Duke saying, there she is, almost real. And then a kind of a request. Will it please you sit and look at her? So I want you to notice that the whole poem is very conversational. It's a dialogue between two people. He's saying, here's the painter. He painted this Duchess, and please look at her. And then he explains. Next few lines, I'm reading it out. Please follow it in your text. I said Fra Pandolf by design. For never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you but I, and seemed as they would ask me if they durst, how such a glance came there? So not the first are you to turn and ask thus. So there's something that has happened in between which we are not told. Now there is the painting, and this painting is not open for everyone to see, right? There's a curtain put on that painting, and the curtain is drawn open for people to see. Who is the only person who can draw open that curtain? It's the Duke. Look at the line. Since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you but I am the only person who can show this to others. So here you have a speaker speaking to someone. We don't know who that other person is, but the Duke is telling that other person, look at this, the painting on the wall. And I'm the only one who opens this to everybody to see, whoever I wish for to see this painting. And he says, I said Fra Pandolf by design. I took the name deliberately. So you have Fra Pandolf, the name has already come the second time in those few lines. I took that name deliberately. Why did I do that? For means because. Never read strangers like you. Any stranger who comes over here, no one has seen the picture and not made a comment. Anyone who sees the picture makes a comment. What do they comment about? They look at that pictured countenance. The countenance is the face. They look at that face, and what do they see in it? The depth and passion of its earnest glance. There is something so lifelike about that painting that they look at it and they ask, who painted it? Who is the painter? How did he capture this? What a beautiful lifelike painting is this? So he says it's not unusual, right? People have asked this. So he says, but to myself they turned and seemed as they would ask me. It seemed that they would ask, not that they ask him, but it appears that they, you want to ask that question, who is the painter? So he says, when I look at them, I show them this painting, and it would appear as if they wanted to ask me if they durst. Durst means if they dared. If they had the guts, they would ask. This is our language, right? Today's language is if you have the guts, if you dare. So he's not using that tone at all. I'm using it over here. I don't know what tone he's using. You can interpret it your way. But look at the poem, right? Here's the Duke. Someone is there, and he's saying, you know, anybody who looks at it always asks me, how did that glance, that look, come over there? So not the first are you to turn and ask us. You're not the first person to ask me this. And then he says, sir, it was not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek. So the Duchess is so pretty. She's apparently a very young woman. And on her cheek, there is a little bit of a blush. You know, when you have a transparent skin and the blush goes up over here, the painter has actually caught that blush. And what is our Duke saying? He's saying, why did that lady blush? Why did the Duchess blush? And he's saying, oh, not because the husband was around. Okay, please don't assume that the blush came because she saw me. All right, so he's saying it was not her husband's presence only that brought that blush, meaning a lot of other people could make her blush. It was not just love for me that made her blush. Okay. And then he says, perhaps it's possible, right? He's just assuming. He says, perhaps Fra Pandolf chanced to say, so again, Fra Pandolf. Now this name is not going to come back again, but in the first 10 lines, 3 times, Fra Pandolf, Fra Pandolf, Fra Pandolf, okay. And he says, Fra Pandolf, perhaps, you know, why did she blush? Perhaps the painter chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much. Okay, so whatever dress she is wearing, you know, whatever is that particular cloth that is over her wrists as well, she's modeling, right, for the painting. So whatever he says, I think that covers your wrist too much. So just pull that cloth back a little, right? Something like that he must have said, and Our Lady blushes. He must have just said that, right? It covers your hands too much, your wrist too much. Or he could have said, paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. Yeah, that I cannot create that. He may have said, you're so pretty, I can't recreate that blush which is going down your throat. Who knows? And so she blushes. We don't know why she blushes. That is what the Duke is saying. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. That spot of joy is a blush. So what is the Duke saying? Let's look at his words again. The Duke is saying, such stuff was courtesy, she thought. Anyone who praised her, she thought that was very nice of them, very courteous of them. And she was so enamored by all these nice things that people had to say that she would blush. So it's not just a husband who made her blush. Anyone who said nice things to her, she would blush. She had a heart. Now I'm reading again. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad. He's describing the Duchess now, okay? He says, you know, when you're describing someone who's as a painting on the wall, perhaps who's dead, you'd say, oh, she had a lovely heart. She had a heart of gold. And here he's saying, she had a heart, how shall I say? I'm not getting the right words. You know, I'm not a master of words. So how should I say it? She was kind of a person too soon made glad. I'd like you to remember this forever, right? Anything would make her happy. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is he praising her, or what is he? He's saying anything made that woman happy. She was, now I'm reading the poem, too easily impressed. Anything could impress her. She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. So here is the Duke telling about the Duchess. There was nothing she did not like. She liked everything she saw, and she saw many things. Whatever she saw, she loved it. And then he says, sir, it was all one. Everything was the same to her. Now I'll read the next few lines. So that, my favor at her breast, the bough of cherry some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, All and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. She would blush at anything. You know, on the terrace with a mule, she's running around. Somebody comes and gives her a bouquet of flowers. Some stranger, good for nothing fool, picks up something from the garden and gives to her. She would be happy. Someone, look at the word, officious fool, right? She sees the sunrise somewhere. She sees the sunset somewhere, whatever she sees. And she would get that sparkle on her cheeks. Right? I mean, she was like that. Everything was okay for her. And then again, he's talking about her, right? Continuously he's talking. She thanked men. Good. But thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift. She says, like, it's good manners to thank someone, right? Someone gives you a bouquet and you say thank you. She says, I'm okay with that, you know. She says thank you to people. That's good manners. I like that. But she had no idea of which gift to say a good thank you to and which gift to simply accept. She had no idea about that. Look at the list of things that he's saying. One more and then I will stop, right? He said, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name. So what is the gift that he is giving to her? He's giving his surname, right? He's giving the family name. How old is that family? 900 years old. How can you take a gift like that and be happy and blush, and also take some ridiculous gift that someone gives, say an ice cream, and also blush the same way? Don't you know the difference? Let me put it in a context for you, you know, right? We have all these singing idol contests, and I have noticed recently that everybody gets a standing ovation. Every good singer gets a standing. Now, if everybody gets a standing ovation, then who is good and how will you know who is not good? Any performance, any presentation, perhaps in your own college, you might have this, right? Anybody does, and students are all whistling and clapping and giving a standing ovation. But the Duke over here is saying, if it is okay, say thank you like that. If it is really great, then you blush and say, oh my God, you know, you do all. But for this Duchess, everything was the same. She thanked men, good. But thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift. So far, what do you think the Duke is doing?
Pratyasha, what do you think?
Ma'am, I think the Duke is kind of saying that the Duchess is nice.
Mm-hmm. Is he saying that with a lot of love? That my last Duchess was very naive, very petite, very charming, very simple, very innocent, didn't know one. Is that how he's saying it? That she was generous with her affection. She was very affectionate. So whether it was me or it was anybody else, she loved them all equally. Is that the tone? Is that what you get so far?
Ma'am, I'm not quite sure about the tone in which he's saying it.
Yeah, but you know all the things that he's saying, right? So keep that in mind, and then we'll come back to the question. So now he's continuing to speak. Now you get the meaning of the word monologue. There is another person over there who's not said a word. And our Duke is going on, and our Duke says, who would stoop to blame this sort of trifling? You know, how can you complain about this kind of a silly behavior? Who would do that? Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such an one and say, just this or that in you disgusts me. Here you miss, there you exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, and made excuse, even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Okay, let me explain this because it's old-fashioned language. He says, you know, I can't blame her for this kind of a behavior. I don't want to blame her. That's very petty and very childish to blame her. And supposing I were a good speaker, supposing I were the one who could speak openly, who was very articulate, or who knew his emotions well and could share it and tell her, you know what, I want you to draw a line here. Don't be too over friendly with these kinds of people. Or over here, it's good that you went overboard and if I were able to give her feedback, if I were able to say, this thing in you disgusts me. Don't do this again, right? The fact that you are all the time smiling at people, don't do it. I find it pretty if I could have said that, I would have said it, but I'm not great at saying, right? Or if I could tell her, here you miss, there you exceed the mark, which means I'm drawing a line and say, here you said the right thing, but you didn't say it enough. There you said, but you oversaid it. If I could have said all that, and if she were willing to be tutored, and if she let herself be lessoned so, if she were willing to learn from me, if she were willing to be taught what is right, what is not right, right? And not plainly set her wits to yours, meaning she didn't fight back. Supposing she didn't say, who are you to tell me what is right and what is wrong? Who are you to tell me how much to smile and to whom? Supposing she had not fought with me like that. And even then, none of this has happened, right? Even then, that would be stooping, and I'm not going to stoop. So I didn't give her feedback. I didn't tell her what I like about her. I didn't tell her what I didn't like about her. I didn't share anything with her. I didn't give her an opportunity to either be tutored by me or to back answer me. I never let, because, that's such bad behavior. That's so petty, right? I'm not that kind of a person. I'm not the kind to tell people, do this, don't do this. This is the right way. And so I didn't do any of that. I would never stoop. I would never stoop, he says. And then he continues. Oh, sir, she smiled. She smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her. Okay, whenever I came across her, she gave me that beautiful smile. Next, but who passed without much the same smile? Or she gave that smile to everybody. So it's not like she smiled at others and didn't smile at me. She smiled at me, but she smiled at everybody else too. So I'll read that bit again. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew. I gave commands. Then all smiles stopped together. What do you understand by this? This grew, this habit of smiling at everyone, that grew. I gave commands. Then all smiles stopped altogether. What is he saying?
Ma'am, I think he's saying that the Duchess was killed. Like he gave the command.
Yeah, can you believe this? Here's a love poem here about his last Duchess. And here it's so, look at the man now. Just look at this man again. You will love to read the poem again. We'll go through that. But here he's saying, I got so tired of her behavior. I didn't tell her anything, but I gave commands. That was it. All smiles stopped. And what happened? There she stands. Now she's a painting, as if alive. So she's not alive, but I've captured that smile of hers in the painting. There she stands, as if alive. She's dead, okay? She's dead because he gave commands. And then he says, will it please you rise? So he's told the man, will it please you sit down? Now he tells that other person, will you please stand up? We'll meet the company below then. So I want you to imagine, right? I want you to just picture this theater scene. So there are these big steps that they are coming down, and as they're coming down, the two men are coming down the steps. They are two men. They're coming down the steps, and there is one picture mounted on the wall, and there is a bench over there, and he tells the person, please sit down, I'll show you the picture. Shows the picture and gives an entire biography of the lady. Oh, she was like this, she was like that. That's my last Duchess, and she's over here. She looks as if alive, but she's not alive, and I gave a command, and she was like this, she was petty, and she didn't know the difference between what a duke is and what my name is and what my title is, and she would go around with a mule on the terrace. She's that kind of a person. Okay, now get up. All right, I've given you whatever. Now, okay, will you stand up? He says. Will it please you rise? Okay, stand up. We'll meet the company below then. So they are walking down because some people are waiting to meet them downstairs. So they are going down the steps. Then he says, I repeat, which means he said this before the poem starts, and he's saying it again. I repeat, the Count, your master's known munificence. So who has come over here? It is the Count's agent who has come over here. This man who is with the Duke is the Count is his master. So this person is an agent. The word used usually is an emissary, someone who's taking a message on behalf of the Count. So there is a Count waiting down, and the Duke is telling this person, your master, the Count, his known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed. So he's saying, your master is just so kind and so generous that whatever dowry I ask, he'll not bat an eyelid. He'll give me the money willingly. He'll just, whatever I give, he will not disallow the dowry that I want. So what do you think? Who are the people waiting down? The Count or the Mount? What is happening over there? What are they going down for? Any clues? The word dowry is known to us. All right, I'll just go a little ahead and I'll read that line. The Count, your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed. Any just request that I make for dowry, whatever I ask as dowry will be just, and I know that I will get it. You will not disallow it, right? Because your master is so good. Though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. As I avowed at starting means right in the beginning, I told you, I am not interested in the dowry. I'm only interested in that daughter. Okay, through his fair daughter's self. That is all that I'm interested in the Count's daughter. I'm not interested in the money, but I know that he will give me the money, right? He has it and he's so generous. So this is what he's telling the guy, the emissary. And then he said, nay, we'll go together down. Why does he say that? We'll go together down. What could be happening? We'll go down together. Why is he saying that? What could have been, imagine, right? What could have been happening that the Duke tells him, no, we'll go down together. Any guesses? Anybody? Just imagine a scene, right? You're coming down a flight of steps and then you're telling someone, no, we'll go down together. What does that mean? Why would you say that?
Ma'am, for company.
Sorry? Ayushi, what did the student say?
Here, Srishti, can you please repeat?
Ma'am, I was saying for company.
For company, okay. So it's simpler than that. We can take that for company, yes. But here is a Duke who's telling this guy, go tell your master I want to marry the Count's daughter, and I'm really interested in her. It's not because of the dowry that she's getting. And then this man must be so scared for life that the last Duchess is up on the wall like this. Now he's going to marry my Count's daughter. What is going to happen? And he's like getting down the steps, and you almost have this man saying, wait, don't go down alone. Wait, nay, we'll go together down. Don't go before me. We'll go together down, sir. So the man is almost running down the flight of steps. I'm just imagining, right? He's going down the steps and he's holding him back and saying, wait, we'll go down together. And as they're going down together, now you can think of, dramatics again, faded volume now. He's telling him, he showed him a painting. Now he's going to show him a piece of sculpture. He's saying, notice Neptune? Next one, right? He's showing that. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse. Neptune is the god of the seas. Okay, so, and there is a seahorse, and Neptune is taming it, controlling it, holding it. He says, can you see that? The other statue, that's Neptune taming a seahorse. Thought a rarity. It's a rare piece of art. Very few people have it, or maybe I'm the only one who has it. And you know how I got it? The claws of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. So there is this person who has made that painting or that sculpture in bronze, and he gave it to me, and they're walking down the steps. So you can have the voice fading away, right? Nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse, thought a rarity. Which close Pinbrook cast in bronze for me. And they're going down the steps. And you will have the Duke marry another woman, and who knows, make another painting of her. So I'm just going to pause here for a minute to say, what do you think of this man now? His last young Duchess has just died. So one person said it's definitely not the final last Duchess, but just the previous Duchess. She's dead, and he's on to the next woman now. And what do you think of the Duke? Let's do a little bit of comprehension, right? What are the, I've kind of even told you it's almost like a horror poem, right? Here is a man who's killed his wife, put her up over there, and look at the way he's talking about himself. He says, I'm not very articulate. I don't know how to talk much. And the whole poem, all these lines are his. This is a poem without stanzas. It just goes on and on. It's a dialogue, but there is no person to have the dialogue with, so it's a monologue. And he's saying, she was like this, she was like this, she did this, she did that, she didn't know what to do, and I wasn't going to correct her. And then I just got so irritated and disgusted that she was smiling at all and sundry. I put an end to everything. And then watch this. Here is a beautiful bronze image of someone taming somebody else, controlling someone else, holding back. Tell me one or two words that you will associate with the Duke.
Ma'am, possessive.
Possessive. You think he was in love with her? Because earlier someone did say that, she was so simple and she was so, is that how the Duke is looking at her? So simple, so innocent, smiling at everyone, gentle, kind. Is that what the Duke is saying?
Mama, I think there was a mockery in his tone. Like he was not very happy with her giving attention to others.
Yeah, absolutely. Possessive, not happy. Yeah, thank you so much. Perfect. And what kind of a man is he then? My last Duchess, my, look at that first word. It's not she is the last, my last Duchess. This me, she has to be like this. So possessive, good. What other quality or what, this is a whole character and the depth of character which is being told to us by a poet. Remember my line, jigar chahiye asar ke liye. You just have to know, here is a man who is doing all these things, and Robert Browning has created a beautiful word picture, a profile of the Duke. So one, he's possessive. What else?
Selfish.
Selfish, yes. Use the language of your own times, your own generation. What would you call a man like this? Very selfish, possessive, yes. self-righteous, then? What do you think of the Duchess?
Okay, one of our faculty members has posted something in the chat box. Self-centered, Farhan sir has said.
Absolutely self-centered. Me, and that's one of my assignments for you when you read the poem, because just read it again, listen to it, and we have an audio too, which I'd like to play for you if you have the time. You know, it's so beautiful to just listen to it again, and then you start saying it once, and you will realize the assignment is this: count the number of times I and my comes in this poem. I, me, my. I count the number of times it comes. And that is the stylistic way of reading. With the words, the poet is creating a certain impression of the Duke. So those of you who thought that the Duke is going to sit and mourn and cry and weep because he had this beautiful Duchess and she died, there is a backstory to it, right? That a young Duchess had died and there was mystery around her death. So maybe Robert Browning is connecting the two, but in today's class, we are not interested in the context, right? We don't want to know really if a 17-year-old died like that. We don't want to know that, but we want to know here is a very young bride whose smiles were commanded to be shut down. No smiling, once and for all, let's get done with it. And if you know the history of King Henry VIII, when you do the history of Britain, and when you know that if you've even watched movies about Henry VIII, the turning point in the history of Britain, he had 8 wives. Oh, he would kill one, kill the next. This one didn't give me a daughter. This one didn't give me a son. This one, you know, do anything. And then because he couldn't remarry and the church would not allow divorce, right? So kill one, get married, kill one, get. Really, that had happened. That was King Henry VIII. But here in this poem, which begins like a love poem, My Last Duchess, and you think that Duke is going to mourn for her. Nothing of that is happening. And then you see a man over here who is horrifying, to say the least. And then now you can have, you know, you can have a feminist reading of the poem. You can look at it from the woman's point of view. You can look at why is Robert Browning writing this kind of a poem. You can raise all those kinds of questions. And you can also see how a poet transcends the barrier of time. He may have written this poem 150 years ago. You read it today, and I know that 150 years later, students will still wonder, oh my God, what a man. And how did Robert Browning create him in words like this? Through the study of a painting. You have the picture and the painting of a whole character being developed. So you think the painting is being described, she was like this, she was like that. And what is happening is we are looking at the one who's talking about the painting. He is like this and he is like that. Anyone else? Thank you to the staff member as well. Anybody else who has anything to say?
Meenakshi, I'm sorry to disturb you. There was one message that I just got that maybe the meeting could end abruptly after 2 minutes. So in that case, if it happens, it's for everyone. We'll just join in again through the same link.
Okay. All right. I won't take more time. I just want to do the iambic pentameter. Yeah. So anyone who has anything to say about this poem? Did you like it? Did you think it was unusual? Anything at all? Anushka, do you want to say something?
Ma'am, I think like in this poem, if we do connection regarding the any place, then I'll connect it with the Duchess of Malfi, as she was killed by his brothers. Because she was also, you know, if we go through the, regarding that text also, in that Duchess of Malfi was also like this. I mean, the portrait of Duchess in this poem, she was also like this only, as his brothers were not allowed her to get, get indulged in any kind of, you know, relation with any lower, you can say lower society people, no. And in this also, like if we go through it, the Duchess also, I mean this, the Duchess just react with everything, like regarding a rose, regarding like your explanation, no. If I reconnect, to maybe because of that only she was killed. This is what I think.
Yeah, obviously she was killed because of all these reasons. And these reasons don't stand justice at all.
Yeah, ma'am.
I mean, she's such a sweet person. And just because the Duke doesn't like her, because
Just
there's
because of the Duke's arrogance and position, she might be killed.
and the sense of possession, yeah, and the sense of control, the sense of she must be like this is how a woman should be, this is how a wife should be, and this is how a person with a title should be. 900 years of khandan ki izzat, right? I have
Yes,
given
ma'am.
that to you, and how can you just go and smile at someone who gives you something which is so inconsequential? Yeah.
Related to this only, these 900 years old, not exactly, but somehow there the like such stuffs are also mentioned in that novel also, like in that drama also.
that place.
That's why that Duchess is killed, and might be this why only this Duchess is also killed.
Yeah, but that's nice. I like the fact that you drew the connection between that Duchess and this. But here is a poem, and Robert Browning has a purpose, right, in writing it.
Yes, ma'am.
I want you to read it closely. I want you to read line by line again. Just let's look at the first few lines. Is there anyone in class who would just like to read the first few lines out aloud? It's okay to falter, to not get it right, but just read it aloud once. Anyone in class? And also one question. It's a question I always. Did any of you like the poem?
Yes, ma'am. I liked it.
Who was that?
That is Ayushi.
No, anybody else? I can see such
I
beautiful.
really hope that everybody liked it. I think it's
It's a
very
poem you will never forget, okay? Even if you're 80 and then someone says, what about my last Duchess? You'll say, oh my God, she was murdered. What about Apurva, Anamika? I can see some very beautiful names. Rohit, Uday, Ridhima. Anyone?
So Rohit sir and Uday sir are faculty members.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
Uday sir is really
Yes,
fond of
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
poetry. So I definitely feel that he must like the poem.
Yes, I really like the poem.
It is unusual, isn't it? You think it's a love poem and then suddenly there's a twist. So will anyone like to read? Anyone? Just the first few lines till we do Fra Pandolf twice or thrice. Anyone?
Pranjal, can you do that? Jeremy, would you like to do that?
Jeremy, just try, Jeremy. It's okay.
Yes, ma'am. My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall. Looking as if she were alive, I call. That piece of wonder now. Freya Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will it please you sit and look at her, I said. Freya Pandolf, my design for never read. Strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtains I have drawn for you, but I, and seemed as they would ask me if they durst. How such a glance came there, so, not the first. Are you to turn and ask thus, sir, does not her husband's presence only call that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek? Perhaps Fra Pandolf's chance to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff.
All right, we can stop here for a moment because this poem, thank you very much, Jeremy, for reading it. And I'd like the others also to try and read it aloud whenever you get the time. It's a flow-on poem, though there is the rhyme scheme of a couplet. Look at line 1, wall, line 2, call, right? Hands, stands, said, read, countenance, glance, by, I, durst, first. Can you see all these are couplets? They're written like with the perfect rhyme scheme. However, the line for the first time doesn't end over there. It's a flow-on line, okay? For instance, that's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. Full stop. Then you run on and you read. I call that piece a wonder. I call that piece a wonder now. Then run online. Fra Pandolf's hands worked busily a day. Fra Pandolf, the painter, his hand worked busily. But so that it's a run on line. It goes on like that. And there is a word for this kind of a figure of speech. Google will tell you everything about it. Okay, so we'll not waste time about that. But the rhyme scheme is there. But when you read, run on and read those lines. Anyone who's doing a quick Google search and can tell me what it is can share that in the chat box. Okay, I'm going to share the iambic pentameter. So since I can't see myself, I'm just going to look at my screen and maybe Ayushi, you can tell me whether things are clear. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am, the screen is visible.
All right, so in the English language, words have stressed and unstressed syllables. I put it down as tadam, tadam, tadam. Wait, let me try this again. Okay, I'm calling this tadam, tadam, tadam. These are just my words right here. That's special to the English language. Sometimes when we speak in a certain language, we in India, we think we are putting on an accent, but that is the accent, right? For instance, if you have a word like terrible, terrible. In India, we say it flat, terrible, terrible, terrible. But in for a native English speaker, that language, a word has to go up and down, up and down. That's how their language goes, right? So it's terrible, terrible. Now, if you say terrible, you think, oh, accent, you know, British. I remember in school, we would always be told, Angrez ke aulad, right? Angrez chale gaye, Angrez ke, because we say terrible. Our t's are very strong. Terrible. We say kind. They don't say kind. They say kind. Okay, the k is a different sound. The sound is okay, but let's look at the up and down. A word like accommodation. We would say accommodation, all flat, but over there, one part, one syllabus, accommodation. One part has to go up. So, and the part that goes up is not something we decide. The dictionary of the language decides it, right? The speakers of the language decide it. They would say accommodation, right? Accommodation. That is the way that word is spoken. So let's, if it's a single syllable word, house, your teachers can do this with you. Sorry to do that, but Ayushi, has this been done? Prosody been done with students? Do they know this?
I've done it with the first year, little bit of it. Iambic pentameter, I've shared a few poems with them and I've shown them how it goes. Like,
okay, okay. So you think we should do this here?
Yeah, you can perfectly do it now.
All right, because this poem has it, right? So if you have a single syllable word, then house, that is stressed. Houseful, you can't say houseful, you have to say houseful. House is stressed, and that's the dumb, okay? Water, war will go up to, will come down. Desire, we do not say desire, we say desire. And then when you have three syllables, together, then you say together. Okay, I've just put down a few words over here because together appears in the poem. Let's look at the tadam, tadam, tadam. I just put this, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Now this is the tadam, 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 because when you do that, you get a rhythm to the poem. There is a beat to the poem. It's like music, and poetry requires a lot of craft. You have to select your words. And why am I saying this? Because look at what the poet has done. In every line, you have this. This is an iamb. An iamb is one stressed and one unstressed syllable following each other. Okay, unstressed, stressed. I put the stressed in bold. That's my last Duchess hanging on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call, and then it goes on. Now, what do we see over here? Unstressed, stressed, unstressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. So I'm splitting the word hanging the wall. Now, so you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is penta. In every line, you will find 5 of these beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How do you get one? Alive. 2. Alive. All right, the entire poem, and I'm looking at the last lines of the poem now. Nay, we'll go down, we'll go together down. So nay, we'll go is of the previous line. So we look at these lines. Together down, you look at the way over here. Together down. So you have two unstressed. Oh, there should be a space here. Together down. So together down. Sano, tisnep, chundo. Taming, a sea, horse, thought, a rarity. I just want you to see stressed, unstressed, highlighted, not highlighted, bold and not made bold. Okay, so you just see which class of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me, which this person of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. Just look at this, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. The entire poem has this, so many lines have this pattern. Every line has 5 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These beats are called a foot. Okay, and an iambic pentameter is this. A pentameter is 5. 5 in a line, and iamb is unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. And this is my assignment for you. Count the number of times the poem uses the word I and me. So with this, I just want to know if you have any questions on the word for knowing the sound and rhythm is called prosody. And people in earlier times, before we had free verse, would actually work on every word. You could not simply write whatever you wanted to. You had to see that that word would have that particular beat to it. Okay, if you have any questions, so I'm telling you that Robert Browning sat down and chose his words. There are different versions of some variations in this poem. Like, you know, our poem, the text that we have says, that's my last Duchess. Other poems have, there's my last Duchess. One says painted on the wall and the other version says hanging on the wall. So we have these versions which are available. We don't know what Robert Browning wrote, but any word that he chose has that pattern. So he sat at his desk and he labored and he worked on it to say, no, this word has to move and that word has to move and the other word has to move. You would understand that more easily in Hindi if that comes comfortably to you. But this is how in English the poem has worked. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you read it again, right? If you have any questions, I'm free to answer them. Any comments?
Anything that's coming to your mind, students, please feel free. So Uday sir, one of our faculty members, has posted the name that you requested them to search, the students to search. So the name is enjombment. I think the pronunciation is enjombment, something like that, right?
Yes, okay, good. Thank you, sir. And what is that one word I used right in the beginning when I said keywords?
Ekphrasis.
Yes, what does that word mean?
Come on, did anybody find it? What is ekphrasis?
Find out what that means and share it over here.
Any questions, anybody, please? Any observations? Feel free.
It's only a poem, right? And I have not attempted to interpret it ideologically. I have not made a feminist reading of this. I've not made a Marxist reading of this. I have simply said, here is someone working with words and what beauty and joy he's able to create. I hope you enjoyed it. I mean,
yes, it was a wonderful session. And I'm so thankful to you because poems are a reflection and the reflections keep changing with passage of time. Also with the passage of scenarios. For students today to equate those sentiments and picture that situation may be a little difficult, but you brought it clearly as to what it was 100 years ago. So that was a wonderful session, Dr. Meenakshi, and I'm so thankful to you because students have to learn that literature is all about a criticism of life, and critical aspects keep changing. At one time during the Victorian period, all prosperity was a prelude to great art. And so the stress in the monologue on the painting. And that variation of prosperity goes up and down like, uh, the crescendo and the descendo. So I'm glad that you gave that vision to the students, because what the students cannot imagine of a scene 100 years back, you made it really alive for them. And this is what poetry is all about. Today's poetry is not talking of such romances and such emotions as distant as the two were. And it can be in the present and it can be in the past. And the description he brings out, where he mingles the present and the past, are so beautifully done, which the students at undergraduate level find it difficult to understand, and you brought it alive to them. So I'm so thankful to you, Dr. Meenakshi.
My pleasure entirely. Thank you so much. But if anyone has any observations, how many of you will promise to read the poem aloud at home? Anyone who'll say, I'll commit? Just
come on, raise your hands, children.
It's a Rohit, thank you.
Just one.
No compulsion, but you will love it, Nina. All right, thank you. You at least heard me. Now I know you heard me. So anybody else, anything that you want to say, any questions that you have? Thank you. That was nice. I hope you enjoyed the poem, because when Ayushi told me teach, and I said, I'm not teaching anymore. And then she said this poem, I said, oh, it's so nice. And then there were two poems. There's one more that I have said yes to, but a lot depends on how you feel about this kind of reading. You can go back to reading lots of interesting articles, JSTOR articles on Robert Browning and this particular poem and on his life, so that you write a good answer. But I want you really to feel the answer and write it. I want that Duke to be a real man that you know, or you can imagine, and use the kinds of descriptions. For, we've got a few words already from the group that he was self-centered, he was selfish, and a controlling kind of a person, molding others. Especially a line where he says, if she were willing to be taught, I would have taught her, but who would do that? So there are many things that you can, there's also a play by Shakespeare, Taming of the Shrew, apart from the Duchess of Malfi, where imagine calling a woman a shrew today, and then you tame her like she's a pet and she has to be trained. But those were the times. They have not changed much here. But look at the beauty of words that recreate a situation like forever. The Duke and Duchess are still alive somewhere here, right? So they are in our midst, even if that was written so many years ago. Like you have the painting and like you have the sculpture, you also have your wife. One more object in your collection. So I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to stop here. Thank you so much for this opportunity, really. I don't know if Ayushi remembered this, but I just get super excited about, such a beautiful poem, and I want to do this. And then I know there will be a mismatch between my over enthusiasm and the student saying, what is she so excited about? What was there in this poem? No, but I'm hoping that it's, there's some joy that I've been able to share with you. And I can't thank you enough for giving me this platform to talk to your students. Maybe someday we will get to see all of you online as well, see your images. Thank you, Dr. Ray. Thank you, faculty. who have taken the time out. You know, you are, I'm sure, far more capable of teaching this poem better than I could. But thank you for your patience for being here today. And Ayushi, all the best to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. We will have a formal vote of thanks, but before that, I would like to say a few words. And before I say a few words, I have a few comments for you in the chat section. So it is busily populated with praises for you. Rohit sir is saying, thank you, ma'am. It was a wonderful and enriching session. Archana ma'am is saying it was really an interesting session, ma'am. Thank you. And Ridhima Balla ma'am, who is a PhD research scholar here, she's saying that thank you, ma'am, for such an interesting and wonderful lecture. Mr. Uday Khanna is saying thank you for such an enlightening and illuminating session, ma'am. And I also want to say the same thing. Maybe I'll just use Chat GPT after some time and send you a message of praise. You know how lazy I am. But anyway, true to your words that, teachers cannot be replaced by Chat GPT. That has been proved by you. A few things about the poem also I would like to discuss with you, maybe after the session or maybe within the session. A few hands are raised. Jeremy and Pratyasha, would you like to say something, or they're just raised because maybe they want to say that they would read the poem aloud later? Is it so? Okay, they're
Yes, ma'am,
lowering
I
their
had raised it earlier.
Okay, okay. Any observations? Anybody, any student would like to share? Would you like to thank ma'am? Such a beautiful lecture that she has given. She spared some time for us, though she is herself hurrying up to leave India.
No,
And
that's all right. That doesn't matter at all.
okay.
It's just the date. Last Friday was a holiday and this Friday, and we had planned to do it on a Friday, but I'm okay.
Okay, Miss Nina Agnihotri would like to ask something, I think. She's raised her hand. Is that so? No?
There's a Dr. Mo. I can only see that bit of the name.
That is Dr. Mohammed Farhan. So he's also a faculty member.
Their
So
hands are
I
raised.
think,
Maybe
their
it's
hands are raised probably because you asked them. So there are
will
quite a few interesting things that I wanted to discuss with you regarding this poem. The first thing that I come, across, like you remember how obsessed I was with binary oppositions when I was doing masters, and you were teaching. So those kinds of things, like how nature and culture and how actual and fictitious these things are binaries. In the beginning itself, we just see the binary between man and woman, but that's not where it ends. We also see how the entire work can be understood as not only a love poem, I mean, not at all as a love poem, but as a piece of horror poem, or like you said, or something like crime fiction.
Yeah, also imagine you kill a woman so that she's alive in painting, art and life,
Yes, and there are certain papers, even I thought when I first read the poem when I was a kid, at that time when I had read it, I remember there was a school teacher who told us that, why does the painter feel bad that she has the mantle covering her wrist too much? So maybe it is about domestic violence also, you know, these kinds of things. And yesterday I was reading this poem aloud to my mother, and I just came across these words, like, this line where you talked about enjambment, that Fra Pandav's hands worked busily a day. So it is also about eroticism, maybe. Lots of things, it is like an epic poem. I don't know why it has not been called an epic poem. It's just called a dramatic monologue. It is a best example of dramatic monologue, but it is just 56 lines. However, I felt that all of these things, and also Fra Pandav being a priest, maybe the duke is also surprised why she's smiling at a priest. So the difference between the binary between the duchess and the priest, or royalty and priesthood, those kinds of things, because that was a time, Victorian era, when we were having these kinds of discussions, how much of ethics is actually objective ethics.
Yeah,
So
also this Victorian prudishness,
yes, ma'am.
can't get the right word for it, but for the students, it might be of some joy to know that legs could not be shown or seen, and therefore your table had legs, and therefore you got the tablecloth. You cover the legs of the table. Even the legs of the table cannot be seen. So they're a little prudish, quite prudish. And Oscar Wilde comes to show them, a mirror to their prudishness. But yes, so, in those times, taking off and not covering your. But I will, for my class today, for the formalistic reading, I will stick to what evidence is available in the poem. Okay, everything else is interpretation. Okay.
Right.
Everything else is extrapolating that interpretation that maybe she was beaten up by her. Now you're making him into such a cruel man that he did it.
There are
But
research
that's
papers, so I'm not the only one.
yeah, I know. So all those, I just want the students to know that those are interpretations. But where is the evidence? The evidence is in our mind. Okay, in the words and the language of the poem itself, the evidence is simply that a man said, "Do this," and she smiled. Yeah. Okay, but carry on. Yes, sorry.
Even the words, like you said, taming, it also reminded me of taming of the shrew. Some kind of taming is going on over here. So the poem is essentially about misogyny and chauvinism, but maybe a lot more than that. It's
Yeah,
very
I was
interesting.
thinking when someone from the class would use the word he's a misogynist, because it's a very popular word these days.
Yes, even I was expecting somebody to put it in the chat box at least. Anyway, and also this is kind of, I also felt that this poem is a perfect example of how free we become in art. If I murder somebody, I would be behind the bars. But here, I can write freely. That person has been, maybe Robert Browning did it himself. We don't know if we are doing a formalist kind of a reading.
Duke, right? He was a duke, and
Yes,
nobody can.
yeah, it is about Duke of Ferrara.
Yeah.
Right. But still, we can, anything can be written. And towards the end, when he says, all smiles stopped, that can only happen in a poem or a piece of art. It cannot happen in real life. So those kinds of things seem very interesting. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for all that you have done for us. And thank you, Dr. Kumkum Ray, for arranging this lecture. I would like to call upon Pranjal for the formal vote of thanks before we depart.
Good evening, everyone. The great philosopher Voltaire once said, "When you arise in the morning, give thanks for the morning light, for your life and strength. Give thanks for your food and joy of living." Appreciation is a wonderful thing. By appreciation, we make excellence in others our own property. I, Pranjal Tripathi from BA second year, on behalf of the faculty, staff, and the students of Amity School of Languages, Lucknow campus, convey my deepest gratitude and regards to our honored guest of the evening, Dr. Meenakshi Shivram, ma'am, for taking the time to talk to us. It is an honor for us to hear you speak, ma'am. We look forward to attending more such profound talks by you. It is my utmost privilege and honor to propose the vote of thanks to our distinguished director, Professor Dr. Kumkum Ray, ma'am, for taking this initiative of conducting a guest lecture on Robert Browning's poem, My Last Duchess. Thank you for your kindness, ma'am. I'm grateful to the MCs of the event, Ms. Shrishti Verma and Ms. Ishna Hasmi. I would also like to thank Mr. Sahitya Akademi and Mr. Jeremy Pradhan for ensuring the smooth execution of the program. Congratulations for wonderfully hosting the session. My sincere thanks and regards are due to our respected faculty and non-teaching staff members for guiding and encouraging us to turn into better human beings. Last but not the least, I extend my warm gratitude to all my fellow students for the time and attention. Wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pranjal. All the best for your second year.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you, ma'am.
You'll have a happy rest of the evening. Enjoy yourselves.
We hope to see you very soon again.
I'll invite all of you to Christ University, Dr. Ray and your faculty members, all those of you who have been patient over here.
Thank you. Our privilege. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, students. Bye, everybody. Take care. All the best. Thank you. Thank you, Ayushi.
All the faculty
May I
members,
leave?
all the students to join. Yes, ma'am. Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. Thanks a lot. We can all leave now.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful session.